Welcome to NVO3. We'll give people a couple more minutes since this is straight after lunch. Is this for conflict resolution? It's yours.
Not mine. Well, that's a bonus, people.
Yeah. If anyone's suffering from jet lag really badly and got a headache, we've got some Tylenol that's been left at the front. Or if this is just how NVO3 makes you feel. Okay, welcome to NVO3. Please take a look at the note well and ensure that you've read it and understand it. Okay, blue sheets. Blue sheets are going around. So please can you sign the blue sheets? Ignis is our secretary. He'll be taking minutes. I think we have a Jabber scribe. Thank you, Tal. Right, I want to talk a little bit about the meeting logistics first up. So the first 40 minutes or so will run like a normal IETF working group meeting. So we have a few short presentations during that time. The final 50 minutes will be taken up with some round table discussion sessions. We don't have any round tables, unfortunately, but some topics of importance to the working group. We have some big flip charts that we'll bring out. We're not sure yet exactly how to best run this session, so this will be an experiment. And we've got a second session on Thursday that we use to report back on these sessions. I'll talk a little bit more about the sessions in a moment. Okay, agenda bashing. So here's the proposed agenda for today. Any comments on the agenda? Oh, thank you. And here's the agenda for tomorrow. So we'll have what we've done is we split the agenda between, for the presentations, between the VXLAN related stuff today and OEM related stuff tomorrow. Okay, milestones. So we need to update the milestones. These are the proposed changes to the milestones that we discussed in the virtual interim meeting a couple of weeks ago. And if there are no comments on these, then we'll make the changes after this IETF. I guess the most major change is to remove the security requirements milestone, because I think there's consensus in the working group to split security requirements and the implications of security into the individual solution drafts and address them in the solutions drafts as part of their security considerations. Okay. So we had a virtual interim meeting on the 26th of October, and that was really, yeah, I think, okay, sorry about that. Yeah, we had a virtual interim meeting on the 26th of October, and that was primarily around discussing the next steps in the data plane design and how we were going to progress the current situation where we have 3 data plane encapsulation drafts with very little technical progress being made on each one of them. So we've chartered the design team to take one of these three existing NCAPs and enhance it to address concerns that were discussed on the list. We posted some questions to the list about if people could post their technical concerns about each of those 3 drafts. And the output of that will be a standards track draft for adoption by the working group. Given that will be progressed as standards track, we would probably see the existing 3 drafts being forwarded as informational after the publication of these of the NVO3 next generation encapsulation. And we would view that single encapsulation as being the one the working group and the industry in the longer term can converge around for the future. It doesn't stop, of course, people implementing and building the informational encapsulations in the meantime, or progressing those drafts and improving on them. And we posted the charter to the list. So the charter was discussed in the, so it's very small text. Please see the list for for the full charter. Okay, document status. So we have 2 RFCs, no new RFCs since the last IETF. We have one in the RFC editor's queue, which is the architecture document. Thank you. All 48. Yes. Sorry. Great, even better. We have a set of requirements drafts, I think, as we've stated numerous times in the past. We plan to progress the requirements in parallel with any applicable solutions rather than publishing them first. So if there's interest in publishing these, you know, when any solutions are published, that's fine. But we won't push the working group to push those out any earlier than that. We have a couple of drafts that have gone through last call, and we really need to send those to Alir. So I'm afraid that's myself and Sam that are tasked with doing the write-up. So there's the multicast framework and the use cases draft. So we promise to get these done after this IETF. Yeah. Okay, as I mentioned, we have these 3 working group documents on data plane encapsulations, and what I propose is that we kind of park these from a working group perspective for the time being until the design team has done its work. It doesn't mean to say you can't work on these, but we won't really entertain them being presented in meetings, and we don't really entertain any change in status of them for the time being. Okay, finally, roundtable session. So after we've had the 3 presentations this afternoon, what we're going to do is bring out some flip charts, and we have some facilitators who will help us. What we'd like to do is to break up into groups and to discuss these 3 topics. So Pat and Greg and Benson have kindly offered to help facilitate these sessions. And we've broken this down into 3 high-level topics: OEM, control plane, and data plane. Now, there were a set of detailed questions posted to the list, and what we'd like you to do is to think about how to answer how to address some of these topics in terms of answering the questions that were posted to the list. So around OEM, for example, what's really important for the encapsulation design? And there are any specific requirements on encapsulation and the control plane coming from OEM? And what kind of visibility is required end-to-end in the NVO3 architecture? So that's at all points, midpoints, and endpoints in the architecture. For the control plane, what kind of standardization work do we really need to do in the NV to NVA control plane, a management plane, and what are the protocol options? Since there hasn't been a huge amount of discussion around what our protocol options really are for some time in the working group. What's needed from Yang models versus dynamic control protocols. Now, there are also some questions around the use of EVPN together with VXLAN and the implications of that on OEM or the suitability of EVPN versus centralized control planes and so on that we posted to the list. So questions like that could be used to steer the discussion. Finally, data plane. So we would like to, there was a lot of discussion on the list on the extensions that might be needed for an NVO3 encapsulation, what kind of options would be required. And there was a lot of concern, I think, around do all these, the visibility of these and the impact of these on nodes in the network or elements in the network, endpoints and midpoints, and what kind of parsing is required and processing is required at those points for the encapsulation and the impact of having potentially large different numbers of options for extensibility in the encapsulation on implementation. So I'd like you to think about really what's really required, rather than really a lengthy wish list. Try and narrow this down a bit. And again, that topic's covered in some of the detailed questions on the list. Okay.
Yeah, on the data plane specifically, because we already have a design team, we would definitely love to hear any of the requirements which the working group would like to have them part of the design team, design of the data plane NCAP. So we would definitely love to hear any of the data points.
Okay, so actually first up we have an update on VDP from Pat. I didn't do anything because we didn't detect it easily. Yeah.
Pat Thaler with my chair of the IEEE 802.1 data center bridging group hat on. Okay. So we've got a draft. It's a very early draft. Please understand that when you look at it. But because basically what we're doing is extending our existing TLVs to cover the needs of NVO3, we really felt we needed early feedback on whether we've got the right fields on and whether that looks like that's going to fill the need, whether we need to adjust anything. So we're making this available. It's a 0.04 draft. It's a task group draft. It's not ready for working group ballot. It's not considered complete or we basically, because of the IEEE way we handle drafts, it needs to be protected under a password. So your chairs have the password and username that you need to get to it. And if you would like to take a look at that draft, and I'd really appreciate if you would, please ask your chair for the password and username. We don't want that to be out on the public internet, so we can't send it on the reflector, so it has to be handled via emails. It's an amendment to IEEE standard 802.1Q 2014. That's where you'll find the base text that it's amending. And when our standards have been out for at least 6 months, they're available for free from on the Get 802 website. So if you Google Get 802, that'll bring you to our website where you can get the base standard, just in case you want to reference that. And if you have any trouble getting to it, send me an email on the list and I can respond with the website. Okay. Or actually there's a URL there too. And so something we're going to be dealing with, working on in the next go round of the draft is terminology. Because right now VDP is written kind of with reference to the ports that we have in Edge virtual bridging. And so we're going to need to provide kind of a translation of when you're using VDP for NVO3, this port sits in the place of that port. So this diagram shows you, we have what we call an uplink port, and that would be the NNVE facing side of the TNVE. Our editors weren't able to find port names for those, so for that we have kind of special names for all our ports, so we can say it's this port or that port. And with the NVE, TNVE, and NMVE, we didn't see all of those defined. So we'll be working on the terminology and trying to get it so it's as equivalent as possible. Though it's probably not possible to get it perfectly equivalent, but just so we can describe how this TLV is used. These TLVs are used when you're using them with NVEs instead of with edge virtual bridges. Okay, and that's it. Any questions? Can we ask how many people, kind of ask who's planning to review the draft? Or?
Yeah, so can we get some idea of who's interested in reviewing this draft? Benson, any others? It would be good to get some review of this, please.
Yeah, I'd like to see some review, otherwise it's not clear why it's worth doing it, so. And it's not a huge draft. Okay. Well.
Good. All right. Maybe send a request to the list as well. We'll send a request to the list too, to try and get some more review of it. Who up next, Greg? Oh, sorry. Just give me a minute.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, we can go to the next. Next slide, please. We have just one slide. Okay. So this is update on BFD for VXLAN. We've done some editorial changes. We changed terminology because what is proposed in the document to use a MAC for the inner Ethernet frame. First it was referred as a well-known, which is probably not the best term. And because we are requesting IANA to allocate it, so now it's referred as dedicated MAC. Another change that you will notice in this version is that we had previously text that started discussion on BFD in VXLAN GPE encapsulation. And as we started enhancing or detailing this, we realized that it probably deserves its own consideration. And then authors decided to take this discussion out of this document and concentrate this document explicitly on VXLAN, BFD over VXLAN, and then VXLAN GPE will be a discussion for another document, whether it be a separate document or the document that discusses use of BFD in NVO3. And with that, we can go to the next slide, which is a very standard. We welcome reviews, comments, and ask chairs in the working group consider adoption of this document.
Okay. So can I ask who's read this version of the document? If you could raise your hand, please. Okay.
No. This is version 4.
Yeah. Any version of the document, actually. And maybe raise your hands if you've read one of the last couple of revisions of the document. Okay, only got 2 or 3 people. 4. I think it'd be good to get some more review of the document on the list. So we'll post a note to the list. If you are concerned or have any comments or questions about the draft, please read it and please send comments to the list. And if we can get some evidence of further review of the draft, then we'll look into whether
and
we
also,
should.
was it reviewed at the BFD working group as well?
Unfortunately, well, okay. BFD doesn't have a meeting this here.
Or
Yes.
the mailing list, I mean.
Yeah, we announced it, but again,
Yeah. If you
because
can
probably
actually get some feedback from the working group. also.
we'll try to. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
So the last presentation slide. So, Fangwei.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Fan Wei from CT. So this, okay. So this topic is the young data model for VS9 protocol, and the current version is 0.3. So next page. So we present this in IETF 95 and. Oh, it's too tall. Okay, it's okay. Okay, so we present this topic in IETF 95 and 94. So this is the third time to present this topic. So for the current version, we remove the access side configuration based on the comments in IETF 95, because the comments suggest that we should focus on more on the tunnel side other than the access side. So remove the access type from the current version, and then we define the global enable node to switch the VS9 instance. If we will configure this node to enable or disable the VS9 instance. And the third one that we add unknown unicast drop node to deal with the unknown unicast frame. This is also a Boolean node. The first one is that we configure the UVP protocol for the VS9 DCI. So we will map the WinI and to UVI. And the next is that we change the operational state. So next page. And from the changes from 0.1 to 0.2, we define the control plane, and we define the static VS9 tunnel for in the 0.2 version, and we also define the operational state. So next page. This is the current VS9 configuration. We have VS9 model, and the down level container is that global enable and VS9 instance, we tap instance, and static VS9 tunnel and UVP instance, and the redundancy group bounce. So we will introduce this container one by one. Next. So this is the VS9 instance configuration. We will configure the global enable, and we will have the list of VS9 instance. And the key of the VS9 instance is the VS9 ID, and we also have the description node and the unicast drop and the filter VRRP node. So this is the VS9 instance configuration. Next is we tap instance. So we also define the list of we tap instance. The key of we tap instance is the we tap ID, and we also have the we tap name, source interface, and the multicast IP. And we also define the inner VNAND hand model. We will define the hand model. There are two types of hand model. We also have the list of band VS9 ID. So this is used for the we tap instance to bound the VS9 instance. So next. Next is the VXLAN control plane. So we define two type of control plane. One is for the static VXLAN tunnel. For the VXLAN static VX tunnel, we will define we will use a list of node to define the static VXLAN tunnel. The K is the tunnel ID, and then we define the tunnel name and address family. So we should support IPv4 and IPv6 for the VXLAN tunnel, but now we only implement the IPv4 tunnel. So, question?
Yeah, Greg Nursky. So my question is that so you have a container for EVPN. Should be part of EVPN model, and then you just argument your VXLAN with EVPN and then use this container?
Yeah. So here
it's just a question.
Okay. So if EVPN protocol is used for the VXLAN design, it may configure at the P router. So your question is that this way should augment EVPN protocol. So I agree with you. So maybe I will discuss with the EVPN team and augment the configuration of the EVPN parameters. Yeah.
Lucy Yang from Huawei. For this the VXLAN tunnel or this VTAP, somewhere need to specify this MTU, what the maximum the frame unit, and also somewhere need to specify that's a tunnel security, what security you are supported.
MTU.
Suppose if this tunnel, I'm using the ISAP, yeah.
So you mean that we should configure MTU for the tunnel, for the static tunnel?
Whether you discovered or configured or whatever, that's parameter need to be yeah.
Okay, so I will consider your suggestion. Okay.
And also security.
Okay, thank you. So for EVPN, we will augment the EVPN model. So okay, next. This is a VXLAN operations data. So we define to show the VXLAN tunnel. So we will show the local IP, remote IP, and the tunnel ID, and or something. Some parameters for the tunnel statics and the VNI statics. So okay, next. Okay, so this is my presentation for this topic. So can we have a so this is the third time to present. So can we have what group of adoption?
Okay, can I show of hands of who's read this draft, please? 1, 2, 3. Okay, a few people. Okay, thank you. All right. Right, now we're going to move on to the roundtable discussion sessions. So this is the list of topics. We'll get the flip charts out. What I suggest is we do maybe over in that corner, over there by Benson on that side, we'll do control plane. This side here maybe data plane, and then at the back we'll do OEM. Aaliyah, would you like to say anything before we go ahead?
So while you're all putting away your laptops and getting up to move to where the roundtable discussion you are most fascinated by is, let me try and inject some energy into the room, because that's part of the point of having an awesome technical discussion in person where we can do high bandwidth.
So we're going to have 3 roundtable discussions. One, as he said, on control plane, data plane, and OAM. We've got some detailed questions that were sent out to the list. One of the things that's happening is I think everyone has pictures in their head of how the architecture works and how it all works for your individual part of the system, and we need to get better communication. If there are a lot of people interested in one particular topic, that's awesome, and we can break it into smaller groups. There are facilitators, and Matthew, Sam, and I will be wandering around to encourage the discussion. I'm afraid there's not going to be a lot of email reading this time. So please move along to the corners you're most interested in, and thank you for coming. This is data plane here. Data plane here.
Well, if you want to change them.